So today I'm reacting to the Danmachi timeline explained video. So I'm mainly reacting to this video because this series is very close to my heart. I'm also writing a fan fiction of it. I'll put the link in this description if you want to read that. So, and I know the setup is a little sloppy. I'm awkward, and things are not good right now. But anyway, this is the first video. The quality will go up later for sure. So let's start the video. Oh, and by the way, shout out to Redline Logbook. If you want to see this video, please go ahead and watch this video on his channel first, and then you can come back.
Redline Logbook here to explain the Danmachi timeline. And this timeline will just be the major events that have happened that we know of. It will not mention the birth of every single character because that will take way too long. So the timeline starts off in heaven with the gods. The gods basically lived for millions of years in heaven, just doing their thing, until eventually they decided to create the mortal realm. And when they created the mortal realm just a few thousand years ago, this is what we refer to as the Age of Humanity. Once again, the Age of Humanity started a few thousand years ago. We don't know the exact number, but I'm going to assume it's something between like 6 to 10,000 years. During this time, the mortal...
I think I remember reading on the Reddit it was actually around 20,000, or maybe it was another series, but I think I read it somewhere that it was around 20,000 years.
Races split apart from each other and developed. Humanity built their cities, the elves moved into their forests.
To be honest, it's quite interesting that Danmachi is, as a timeline, it's existing for thousands of years, but they are still stuck in this medieval town. I mean, they surely have technology better than ours, like they have healing magic and other things like a flying ship around 700 meters school district, if you know. Was that a spoiler? And since I know I have read some novels, so I will be talking about some spoilers, so you are warned.
The animal people moved into the woods and also atop mountains. The dwarves moved...
And again, sorry, I'm posing too much, but that I will do frequently, quite frequently. I'll be pausing the video because otherwise, there will be no point in me reacting to a video.
Inside of the mountains, as miners, the Amazons created their own country, Telskora, which is on an island in the south. In fact, the only race that really didn't have a home were the Prums, who were basically forced to live underneath all the other races, specifically humanity. Then, for a reason that we do not know, the dungeon appeared in the world. And this is the beginning of the Age of Sorrows. In the Age of Sorrows, the monsters came out of the dungeon and ravaged the entire world. Death on a scale that was unimaginable. Entire cities were wiped out. The elves basically hunkered into their forests, hiding away. The beastmen were forced farther and farther into the mountains, and just absolute destruction. Entire forests were destroyed. Plains were turned to nothing but dirt. The ground was crushed underneath monsters' feet, and normal animals began evolving to become more monstrous themselves just to survive. It's as if the entire...
I don't think it was about a monster evolving. It was about, a monster coming out of the dungeon. Their number was so huge that they overpowered almost all the races.
The entire world was slowly turning into a barren wasteland of nothing but rock. And
I may be wrong. Again, sorry for the pause.
it's as if the entire world was slowly turning into a barren wasteland of nothing but rock. And the response during the Age of Sorrows by most of humanity was basically to go into complete heathenism because they saw this as the end of the world or nothing mattered. They decided to indulge in human sacrifice, unending gluttony, murder, all kinds of orgies, just absolute barbarism and heathenism the world has never seen before. This act of hedonism...
I don't think that's that much different to our reality, actually.
end up getting its own name by the gods called Orgia, which is actually just a combination of two words, orgy and panamania. A panamania is basically a group of monsters. That's what you call them. And I think you all know what an orgy is. So they just smashed the words together and said, that's basically what's happening in the world. The gods decided to aid and also somewhat mess with the mortal races during this time of horror. Those who decided to aid...
Again, another spoiler. I will give a timestamp. You can skip to that part. But actually, this horse is actually a spirit. I think it was Jupiter. No, it was Jupiter was in the sword of that guy. his father. But this is also a spirit actually.
Down spirits. Each spirit is personally made by an individual god, and their purpose basically was to protect humanity from the monsters. Those gods that wanted to mess with humanity sent down artifacts. These artifacts are actually greater power than that of the spirits, but they come at a cost, every single one of them. Alright, now we're going to get more concrete.
Okay, this artifact things is I'm hearing for the first time. Maybe my knowledge is lacking because I haven't read all the volumes. But I think these artifacts were made by the spirits, like a spirit inhabit these artifacts.
Information that we have. 3,000 years plus, we're still in the Age of Sorrows. That is when King Lycoris got his hands on an artifact, the mysterious chain, which allowed him to enslave a minotaur, which he decided to name Minos. With this minotaur, he was able to create the most fortified city in the entire world, the kingdom of Lycoris. Unfortunately, because this is an artifact, it has a horrible cost. To keep control over the minotaur, the chain requires human sacrifice of the blood of the wielder. And so, King Lycurgus fed his parents, his siblings, his wife, and his mistresses to the Minotaur until he was down to just 2 daughters. Several years later, another king got his hands on a artifact, King Cormac of the Cormac Kingdom, and he got his hand on the Sword of Oath. This sword, if you pledge your allegiance to him, binds you to a contract that can never be broken. You basically become his slave. On the other hand, every time he uses this sword, he receives a vision of some horrid thing that is going to happen. Basically, they're curses for every time he subjugates another individual. The first thing he did is he used this to unify his kingdom with 4 others, forming the largest kingdom in the world, Cormac Kingdom. The most famous of these kingdoms that he unified with was the Austria Kingdom. This was the one that would eventually lead to his downfall because, as part of the oath that he created, he signed a pact with the infant child that would inherit the throne of Ultras to be his queen. And this unification is actually what led to his first vision, which is that this new queen of his would become a monster that would destroy his kingdom. 2 decades after this, we're still over 3,000 years ago, the Iklos Kingdom was destroyed by monsters. Everyone within it was completely ravaged by monsters and killed. The only survivors was a member of the royal family, Argonaut, and this half-elf girl that he saved, Fiona. The two decided to start traveling the world, and the two became adopted siblings. Around this time, the king of Cornac learned that his vision of his queen Granada being a monster ended up coming true. As such, Granada would go around murdering.
I think this Fiona is the reincarnation of Lephia, I think.
And the two became adopted siblings. Around this time, the king of Cornac learned that his vision of his queen Granada being a monster ended up coming true. As such, Granada would go around murdering innocent people that she found cute and then turn them into stuffed dolls. King MacCulloch, instead of dealing with his wife, he decided to use his Sword of Oath to force one of his greatest knights, MacCullen, a prum, to basically take the fall for it and be executed. MacCullen's daughter, Fiona, knowing the truth but unable to...
Okay, that's the goddess Fiona. The prom goddess, I think. Yeah.
Anything about it, decided to make a...
So yeah, I think this is the goddess Fiona that Finn, whose picture Finn kept in his office. I think she's regarded as a fictional goddess, not a real goddess like Loki and Hestia and other gods.
Contract with a spirit, Fingus, a spirit created by the god Golbrana. The contract was simple. 1, he would create a magical barrier around a forest of Elnia, so Fiona could create a village for the Prums. And 2, he would forge her a spear that would allow her to take on monsters and become a new knight. And after time, she formed the Knights of Fiona, an all-Prum group, which then later became part of the Cornwall Kingdom, where, once again, she was put under the Sword of Oaths to obey King Cormac. Around this time, Crozo, a simple blacksmith, saves a spirit from a monster. Almost dying in the process, she gives him his blood so he can survive, granting him the ability to form magic swords for the first time. 3 years later,
his reincarnation of wealth. So I think it's fair that he is able to cast made magic swords, except all his clan member.
Argonaut finally makes his move. He hears about the story that the king of Lekris is currently looking for heroes that will fight against the monsters. Both him and his sister Fiona head off. This is where we have the story of Argonaut and everything that takes part in it. This includes Argonaut learning that the king is evil, that he plans on sacrificing his daughter, the Princess Ariana, to the Minotaur so he can keep control over it. He also meets all of his new friends, being his closest friend Crozo. Then we have Yuri, the son of a chieftain of werewolves, Graham, a proud dwarf, Elmina, an assassin Amazon, who was actually working for King Lucris, but later joined Argonaut, Elena, a human pretending to be an Amazon, because she's actually the secret daughter of the king, and the half-sister of Princess Ariana. She would become one of the three great poets, and a traveling bard known as Riulu, who would also be remembered as one of the three great poets. With all of their help, and after forming a contract with a
They are all
spirit named Jupiter created by the god Zeus, they were able to slay the Minotaur and save the Princess Ariana. Argonaut's bravery and the fact that he was a fool who stood up and became a hero is actually what leads to other people standing up and fighting for the world. He promised that he would be the ship that would carry all of them into a new world, and that's exactly what would happen. As a result of this, we enter the New Age, the Age of Heroes. During this age, Princess Ariana becomes the Queen of Lekris, as her father is locked away permanently in his room under house arrest. On Argonaut's next mission, he ends up dying, being killed by a lion. Not even a lion monster, just a lion. Yuri, the Beastman, became a hero to his people and was able to unify all the animal people. Graham became a hero of the dwarves, unifying them. Eliana became a hero to the Amazons and unified them, and Ryu and Olnia both began to tell these heroes' stories. Many other heroes start popping up besides the one who witnessed Argonaut, but just followed the example of it that he created, that being Epithemus, a man who freed the kingdom of Orlando from monsters, and
Oh, okay. I was wondering where you getting this content from. It's from the game. I think it's Dan Memo or Dan Choro. I think it's Dan Memo, this one.
Algius, a warrior that was able to unify 10,000 men to fight against the Scourge. 10 years after the death of Argonaut, Queen Armida declares it is time for the Great Rebellion, where all the major kingdoms and heroes of the world will unify and finally seal the whole of monsters. King Cormac was seen as this great hero. As such, he was declared the leader of this rebellion, and he would be the one who's supposed to lead the army against the monsters to the Great Whole. Unfortunately, King Cormac, while accepting this position, was actually somewhat of a coward and a paranoid nut. Main reason being is because when he subjugated Fiona under his Sword of Oaths, he got a vision of being murdered under a full moon by a red-eyed individual. Fiona has red eyes. As such, he assumed that she would be the one that would murder him, and so he went out of his way to try to kill her by sending out a bunch of suicide missions for the last 13 years, but she kept coming back. And now that he was about to lead an army of multiple kingdoms against the monster's homeland, this would be his last chance to get rid of her. And so he sent his entire army to slaughter the Knights of Fiona when their guards were down, just spending time in the Drum village. Everyone was killed and slaughtered. Very few survived. One of the few that survived was a boy named Dim, who was the half-brother of Fiona. To get his revenge, Dim changed his name to Finn, and then made a contract with his sister's spirit, Fignus, where Fignus trained him for the next 10 years. And also, Finn now rebuilt the Knights of Fiona. With this, he was then able to exact his revenge. He murdered the king, he murdered the queen, and he went into retirement. A new queen, Alakni, was put in charge of the Cormac kingdom, and the Great Rebellion began. All the great heroes I mentioned, plus an army of 100,000, fought against the horde of monsters spewing from the dungeon, and eventually, with the help of Finn, they succeeded in finally making it to the dungeon and sealing it. And for the next 2,000 years, different heroes began to enter the dungeon bit by bit, fighting it, learning its mysteries, until eventually, the greatest hero of all was born, Albert. Albert was such an amazing hero that there's an entire book based around him known as the Dungeon Oratoria, which explains his exploits as a hero. What any of these heroic deeds are, we only know one of them, and that was his last heroic deed. Because, while Albert was in Aurorio, going deeper into the dungeon and doing heroic things, the dungeon gave birth to a black dragon, one so powerful and vicious that it was going to destroy the entire world. But Albert was able to force it into retreat by cutting out one of its eyes. Albert dies in the process, but the world is saved, and this is when the Age of the Gods began, because of the death of the greatest hero. That is when three gods, Zeus, Uranus, and either Hera or Poseidon, decided to ascend. So the Age of the Gods is basically the period in time from 1,000 years ago to the current. And this is the period of time that we know the most about. First off, Zeus and Hera form their familias, which become the power familias for the next 1,000 years, basically ruling over Aurorio and all other adventurers. Uranus grants one man a fauna, Daedalus, and he has him construct the Tower of Babel, his shrine so he can pray to the dungeon, the guild, and a bunch of other buildings that were in Aurorio that are really nice. Shortly after this, he then enters the dungeon, and Daedalus goes completely insane. Like a madman, he then constructs Daedalus Street, a area of the city of Aurorio that is so confusing and haphazard that is referred to anyone who lives there as a maze. He also started on building Noxus, a labyrinth that circles around the dungeon as basically his magna opus as a way to deal with the fact that he could never build anything on par with the dungeon itself. Daedalus was crazy, but he wasn't stupid. He knew he couldn't finish Noxus in his lifetime, and so he decided to curse his entire bloodline to finish it for him. Uranus then constructs the guild, which will be the governing body of the city of Aurorio for the next 1,000 years. After this point, gods then start ascending down from heaven. Most of them enter Aurorio, but they travel all over the world, forming familias. 800 years ago, a man known as the Great Mage, we don't know his real name, joined a familia. He pushed his fauna to the limit to the point where he was actually able to create the Philosopher's Stone, a stone that would grant any individual immortality. His god then smashed it and started laughing at him. As such, the Great Mage then dove into his research even further, experimenting on his own body, cursing himself to become an immortal skeleton. He then took on the name Fels the Fool, and decided to work under Uranus. During this period of time, in the last 800 years, the Xenos are discovered, and Uranus decides to make a deal with them, hoping one day they and the mortal races could find common ground and live together in peace. During this period of time, evil gods started popping up and joining together to form a group called Evilis. Because the Zeus and Hera familia existed, they only could work in the shadows, not able to do anything extreme. As such, they slowly built up their power, joined forces with the descendants of Daedalus so they can have access to Noxus in exchange for funding the construction of Noxus, and just waiting centuries, biding their time so they can implement their plan to destroy everything. Over 15 years ago, the construction of the schools district was started as a way to combat the Leviathan. 15 years ago, the Zeus and Hera familias then decided to take on the three grand quests. First off, they took down the Behemoth, Lord of the Land. Then, with the help of the Poseidon familia and now the school district, they were able to take down the Leviathan, Lord of the Seas, and finally, they took on the One-Eyed Black Dragon, the Lord of the Skies, and
they were defeated. To be honest, that one-eyed black dragon is kind of busted if he was able to, defeat both two strongest familia. And now in the canon, we have about 1 year, which the unanimous timeline we have that will end the series in 1 year. It's kind of hard to imagine, to be honest, the canon character defeating one-eyed black dragon.
They were annihilated. With the annihilation of both the Zeus and Hera familias, two groups made their move. The first group was the Loki and Freya familias, who then banished both Zeus and Hera from Aurorio. Zeus then moved into a small farming village in the mountains near Aurorio, where he would then start raising Bel as his adopted grandson. And the second group was Evilis. As such, we now enter the Age of Darkness. The Age of Darkness is a 10-year period where what was the remnants of Aurorio fought against Evilis to see who was going to replace both Zeus and Hera. 12 years ago, Dionysus starts to plot the destruction of Aurorio while working behind the scenes with Evilis, while at the same time having a public...
This guy, the first time he appeared in the anime, he gives me the feels. I know he was a lead character.
Face as one of the good guys. 7 years ago, the 7 Days of Blood happened, which is the entire story of a stray...
Erebus is kind of a character that is bad, but you can't truly come to hate him. Yeah, he's that kind of character.
A record where the remnants of the Zeus and Hera familia teamed up with Evilis to destroy Aurorio. They were defeated by the forces of good. 6 years ago, the nightmare on the 27th floor happened. Led by Olives, he decided to lead a massive past parade where him and the rest of his Evilis followers sacrificed themselves to slaughter many of Aurorio's adventurers. This is also where Olives and Filvis first met the demi-spirit. After being turned into creatures, Olives decided to serve underneath the demi-spirit, while Filvis went back to to her god Dionysus, who then decided to use the demi-spirit as a way to destroy the world. 5 years ago, just like Olivia's plan, another group of evilists decide to lead the Astrea Familia into the dungeon and set a trap. This does not work, at the same time does. It accidentally summons the Juggernaut, who then slaughters the entirety of the Astrea Familia besides Ryu. Ryu then goes on a blood rage of revenge, killing anyone involved with Evilists, finally ending the Age of Darkness. The remnants of Evilists that survived.
Now, to be honest, Ryu is kind of badass. She was level 4 and she annihilated like 2-3 main familias that were Evil's member along with a lot of people. It's not surprising he got double level up.
That survived Ryu's slaughter, then spend the next 5 years hiding away in Noxus, still plotting alongside Dionysus to use the demi-spirit to destroy Aurorio. 1 year and 7 months ago, Zeus fakes his death as a way to escape the prying eyes of Hera, who is currently looking for him. After mourning his grandfather for a year, Bel decides to fulfill his dream of becoming a hero. 7 months ago, Bel meets Hestia, and the two start the Hestia Familia. Alright, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up so you can enjoy more Danmachi and my things.
Yeah, you can go ahead and subscribe Redline Lab book. It was a very informative video, so a lot of things that I did not know were mentioned. But free plugin. In my fanfiction, a lot of events have already happened, like the whole wheel is the member, the great conflict. And in the future, we are going to explore outside of Aurorio. So you can go ahead and look at it. First 20-30 episodes are not good. I won't call them garbage because that's my first time writing something, but they are not good. So yeah, you can like, subscribe my channel as well. It's the first video. I'm talking very slowly because my family is sleeping and it is my first time recording and I'm very awkward right now. So I hope you can forgive me for that. I think I should have given this message on the first 20 seconds instead of at last. So yeah, and Redline logbook. If you have any problem with me reacting to your videos, you can drop a comment and I will take down this video, or at least unlisted, because I really like Danmachi and I consumed almost all the content on the YouTube about it. Yours was the first one that I haven't seen and decided to react to this video, so I hope we are cool. Anyway, thank you guys, bye, have a happy life.